Hello, Garland Nixon here, hanging out with our dear friend Laith Marouf, and we got a whole bunch of things to get updated on from the Middle East. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here with Laith Marouf. And before we get going, or as we get going, Free Palestine TV, and the location, the URL is freepalestine.video. Remember that, .video, freepalestine.video. And hey, how do you remember it? There's video, right? This is an outstanding website, and it's here's the great thing about it. It's really designed and set up for people in the West to kind of understand what's going on. You can see there's great video in it. They do their latest episodes, the field reports, military operations, and of course, what's critically important at freepalestine.video is that you donate to keep it going. Everybody wants to get involved, and sure, it's great to go watch Garland Nixon or who the hell ever, and to get in the chat and shake your fist and say all of these things that you're angry against Zionism. But there's something you can actually do in the real physical world. What can you do? You can click on Donate to Free Palestine TV at freepalestine.video, and of course, when you do that, you can make a one-time donation, or you can make a monthly donation. So get together. And also, if you can't afford it, that's fine. Even whether you can or can't, here's what's important. Share freepalestine.video on all your social media platforms. And on the post, make sure you ask people to donate. Thank you very much. And it's great. The sacrifices that people are making, and that all of these hardworking journalists are making, the danger they're facing with the Zionists blowing up people every day. It's unthinkable. Be a part of freepalestine.video. That's Free Palestine TV. And make sure you follow them on X and Telegram and all that stuff. Okay, let's get going. There's a lot of things to talk about. Here's what I wanted to start. So, my curiosity. Your thoughts on the unrest in Israel, in occupied Palestine?
Yeah, I mean, it shows that there's immense stresses within the colonial society, and we already also have the economic forecast that just came out saying the Zionist economy in the colony has lost the largest amount of GDP since the creation of the colony. It has the government has a huge shortage in money for their budget, and they have passed the largest military budget since the creation of the colony. So there clearly a lot of the factory zones were targeted by Hezbollah and by Iran, as the ports were targeted by Yemen. The Palestinian resistance attacked much of the colonies around the Gaza extermination camp. So a lot of people are out of jobs. There is no investments coming from the outside for anyone that has any brain cells. Nobody wants to invest in the Zionist colony. Only ideologues and direct government investments that are happening by European states and North American states that are purchasing weapons mainly from the Zionist colony, although these weapons have failed in all of these 22, 23 months that we saw of this war. So it's clear ideological purchases of Zionist products, but that's not making up for the reality of loss of productivity. And add to that, of course, the fact that hundreds of thousands of working age men specifically are out of the market because they have been called into the Zionist military, and they're always on reserve and what have you. So there's fluctuations in their working situation. Those all led to what we see right now of hundreds of thousands of colonists out in the streets in Tel Aviv. calling for a ceasefire and a deal to return the captives that are held by the Palestinian resistance. And this is all clearly from a selfish point of view. It's nothing to do about saving Palestinians that are starving or stopping the genocide that is being committed in their name as citizens of this colony. It's all about their selfish need to survive at this standard that they have been used to, which is the standard that results from zero work but a lot of theft of indigenous land and resources, and living above and beyond the real means that should be there for such colonists.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. And the term I like to use is they're exhausted. They're exhausted. And they found out the truth. And that is the truth, in my opinion. This is just my speculation, my opinion. All Israel ever was a military outpost for the empire. That's all it ever was. And they got everything. Okay, you get free college, you get this, you get money, you get all these things, you get to sit around and get fat and lazy, because that's what they did. You get all of that. But once we decide that we need to activate this military empire, who cares? You're a military empire. And you'll be used the same to the last Israeli, the same way they say to the last Ukrainian. They could care less to the last. You know what I recall, to something that opened my eyes? During the when they were getting pounded into submission by Iranian rockets, and a bunch of the Zionists says, "I want to leave," and they said, "You can't leave." And they're like, "We want to leave." No. You can't leave now. You got to stick around. We need casualties. We need things that look bad so that we can tell everybody how bad you got it, and we can continue to drum up for support. And I looked at it and I'm like, yeah, they're just using them. They are actually cannon fodder too. And again, they're used to sitting around with Netflix, eating popcorn, living good. And now they're have to living there, and the indigenous people of the region will fight them until there is no time left on the clock. And they can't handle that.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the destruction caused by Iran's missiles, because we now know from the ministries and the budgets that are being put for the reconstruction that at least 15,000 housing units have been destroyed by Iran's missiles. And that's a huge number. And when you look at the construction costs in the Zionist colony, they're very high. So to be able to rebuild all this infrastructure and housing, they're going to be spending tens of billions of dollars. And this is money they don't have. So there's very slow reconstruction of anything, actually, right now, because also the Zionist leaders predict that they're going to be back in war, either in Lebanon or in Iran, in the next few weeks, actually. This is something that everybody should be ready for. We will be back at war no matter what. The Zionists don't like to conduct wars in winters, especially against, and we saw that the same thing with the American military. They like summer, wars, because there's no cloud cover and what have you. So everybody's predicting that in the next few days, next few weeks, before the end of the summer, we may see ourselves back in war, either against Lebanon and or against Iran. And in both cases, there'll be mass destruction of more Israeli housing units and infrastructure. And so there's no reconstruction right now happening. And anyone that can't find housing, look, there's all the colonies that are around Gaza that only a small part of the colonists are back into them. And less than 15% of the colonists on the borders of Lebanon also returned. So add to it now all the destruction of housing units in the central core of the colony, around between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. And you have shortages of hotels, of any units offered for long-term rent leases. And that's why we see right now a flood of colonists that are purchasing whole neighborhoods in Cyprus. Whole villages have been bought up by the colonists in Cyprus. This is causing also a huge strain on the Cypriot economy because it's bringing up the prices of housing and rentals. And it's causing also more and more resentment within the Cypriot population against these colonists. But you can definitely now walk into whole villages in Cyprus and you can meet only Israelis in them and this is a permanent reality until there's reconstruction that happens in the colony, and that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, I think you're right. What's your thoughts on this? Let's go. We got a couple of things we got to get to. The next one is this discussion of a ceasefire deal. And I can add one other thing to that. And generally, when they do a ceasefire, it's because they want to attack someone else. It's like, okay, we got a ceasefire, we'll attack Syria. Ceasefire, we'll go to war with Iran. Ceasefire, they usually only do a ceasefire because they can't fight on one front at the same time, much less two.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the indicators that the Zionists want to open another front. But let's also look at the last two ceasefires that happened, each in the term of a different American emperor or president. And in both cases, the Zionists breached those ceasefires and literally gave the middle finger to the emperor or the president. And now, this is, if we look in a historical context, is an indicator of change of power balance within the empire. You had the British Anglo Empire with its capital as London before World War II, shifting, and the base of economy of that Anglo Empire was India, the most important jewel of production in the British Empire. And with the shift of the seat of power of the Anglo Empire to Washington after the end of World War II, the economy, or the base of the economy, became North America's mines and factories, including Canada's resources. And that was, finally proven that the seat of power moved from London to Washington in the 1956 war, when the French, the British, and the Israelis attacked Egypt to retake the Suez Canal. And the president of the United States says, hold on, you didn't ask me, go back to your bases. I am the boss. And that was the final indicator of the shift of power from London to Washington. Today, we see a shift in the power seat, it seems like, from Washington, D.C. to Tel Aviv of the empire. And the core industrial and resource base is shifting from North America to Western Asia, where the Israelis want to create this greater Israel, where they have already under their control every Arabic capital, almost, with the contestation in Beirut, Baghdad, and Sana'a, but everything else is under the control of the Zionists. So you see the shift of base, and that, and the rejection of the ceasefires that were called by Biden and then Trump by the Israelis, and the breach of those ceasefires by the Israelis, are an indicator right now that the power is shifting from Washington, D.C. to Tel Aviv. And the politicians that we see sitting in Washington are becoming less and less able to control the realities of the empire. I don't know how this is going to continue like this, but the British London-based Anglo Empire lasted 400 years. Seems like the American Washington, D.C. based empire lasted less than a century. And now, how long is this Tel Aviv-based empire going to last? Clearly, it's going to be much shorter age, and these crises that we see around are an indication that this is not going to last much longer. The ceasefire will not last if it's even called. I believe it's not going to be accepted by the Zionists, as has happened here in Lebanon. The Zionists don't agree to anything that the Americans are proposing, and they're just hoping that the other side agrees to these ceasefires and they can continue killing indigenous people in the region.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're seeing, I feel like, in the, you know, people are like, when, you know, in real time, people look at something by weeks and months, but historical time stretches a lot longer out. I think we're seeing a very, very rapid decline in not the Zionist. I'll put it like this: the U.S. empire is a Zionist empire. And watching the U.S. empire, man, to go from 10 years ago to where it is now, you're not here internally. People here are, if we have a midterm election, I don't know what's going to happen, because if people run against these current politicians and say, "Hey, I don't like what Israel's doing," they'll win. And because people are not happy, and I don't think they can do it. I don't think they can. Let me show you something real quick. Let me show you something that, watch this before we go. Real quick. I don't know if you saw this. I just want to get a quick comment. It's all over the whatchamacallit. Pentagon planning a rapid deployment reaction force to quell civil dissent. They're going to create a domestic civil disturbance quick reaction force armed with weapons and riot gear, ready to be deployed instantaneously to quell civil unrest anywhere in the nation. Right? So the military, now this comes from the Pentagon. So the military is now saying we got to put together a rapid reaction force to quell civil dissent. First of all, civil dissent is legal and protected speech under the Constitution, which they don't give a crap about the Constitution. That's bull crap for us. But even right now, what I'm looking at it, and I'm like everybody I know hates Israel, and it's like, this is bull crap. Right? Like everybody, people, I do a radio show in DC. You should hear the callers. Man, I say stuff that I'm surprised they don't throw me off the air for. And the people call in and they're like, "Darling, keep saying what you're doing. We're 100%." They're furious, right? And then I look and I'm like, man, what are they going to do? I mean, it's a long ways off. How the hell are they going to deal with this in the midterms? I watch a Republican. I saw a video and he's like, you know, having a town hall, and the people are furious. They're screaming. They're starving people. And this lady comes up and says, "Look, it's time for you to go. You just don't represent us anymore." And I'm like, how in the hell are they going to have midterms? They will get their clocks cleaned, right, by people who are opposed to Zionism. And I see this and I'm like, well, I think that explains the plan.
Yeah, look, there's been already like 2 experiments by the government in the US towards this eventuality that they're hoping for, of deploying these troops on the grounds inside the United States to quell civil dissent. We saw what happened in California, and this is the most populous state in the US, with probably one of the highest, diversity in cultural and linguistic groupings. So you have all the Latinos, the African diaspora, the Chinese, the so forth that are in California, and neither the mayors or the governor of California were able to stop the president from deploying these troops on the ground. And then we saw what is happening right now in Washington, D.C., which is even a worse situation, where Washington has no representation in the Congress or the Senate and is left to the whims of the federal government to do what it wants. And those troops that are marching inside neighborhoods and talking to people on their porches and threatening people on their porches, this is all examples of what's going to become normal. Already it's normalized. And we saw, of course, hundreds of people being arrested across the United States, students, professors, journalists, people losing their livelihood and their education, all through dictatorial positions, dictates basically by the government. And even seeing those universities pay compensation by decree from the president to pay compensation to the Zionist students and professors that felt hurt because other students and professors were demonstrating against the genocide. So we're rapidly seeing, and anyone that hasn't noticed these things are definitely blind, but we're rapidly, moving into this full 100% dictatorial fascism on the streets of the United States. And people, the populace in the United States needs to react in different ways. I don't even know if if elections are going to be allowed to be democratic either, right? So what you mentioned there, we've seen all those surveys of the American public over the last 2 months in regards to their opinions about Zionism, the Jewish state, quote unquote, and the genocide. And we know that the vast majority of the Americans are against even selling weapons to the Zionists or continuing to support this project and the genocide that is committing. So will they allow democracy to speak under these conditions? I don't know. And there was that meeting between Trump and Zelensky where Trump hinted to saying, oh, I would love to in the next midterm elections if we're at war and I don't have to run an election like you. I mean, it's a joke, but is it a joke?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So this is where we're at, and I think it's just going to get worse from this day on.
Yeah, it's a joke, and we're the punchline. That's the problem. All right. What's happening in Lebanon? There's talk about disarming Hezbollah, attacking Lebanon. I've heard discussions that there could be mutiny in the military, that there are people in the government and the military who are saying that's gone too far, that we're not, there's a lot of support for Hezbollah. Your thoughts on this push, which I think they would do it, the Zionist empire, to strengthen its hold. I think it would weaken its hold on the region, because not just that, I think that I believe some of these Arab countries that are completely captured by the US empire are getting scared. They're starting to say, holy crap, maybe they're just going to throw us away and put some, say, well, why should I have the puppets? I'll just throw them aside and put some Zionist master in charge of them too.
Yeah, there was yesterday a press conference and a meeting held by a host of parties in Lebanon, including the Syrian Social Nationalist Party, the Arab Unificationist Party, the Arabic Revolutionary Party, and Hezbollah, amongst others. And at the end of the meeting, we were there. There was a press conference, and the spokesperson for Hezbollah's political council and the president of the Syrian Social Nationalist Party both spoke. They warned the government that their actions are now crossing the treason line, and that they have a lot of hope in the Lebanese military and its leadership by General Haikal, that they will not allow a sedition situation to happen where the military confronts the populace, the people that are all with the resistance, and to basically do the job of the Zionists. We heard, General Haikal went and visited families of Lebanese soldiers that were martyred in an explosion while they were removing ordnance. And the families of the soldiers were telling the General Haikal that members of their family are in the resistance, that they are will not allow targeting of the resistance, and that they hope that General Haikal will not do such a stupid thing. And he responded with saying that he will not allow the Lebanese military to be used to suppress the population of Lebanon and or be the cause of a civil war. So right now, we know that within the military itself, there's been a change in public position. Having General Haikal speak in such ways indicates that the Prime Minister Salam, who was pushing for the disarmament of Hezbollah under the orders of Barak, the envoy of Trump, is now going to have a clash. And it's going to be impossible for the Prime Minister to order the military to do what he wants. And if he attempts to remove General Haikal from the leadership of the military, without even any civil war starting, there will be a mutiny within the military. There's, I think, in the speeches of both the representative of Hezbollah and the SSNP during this press conference yesterday, they both hinted that if the government continues on this path, that the people may remove them from office. And so they're basically hinting to a popular uprising. And in 40 minutes or something, at the end of our interview here, there's going to be a huge demonstration in Hamra Street, starting at the beginning of Hamra Street, with all the student groups and popular mobilization units and community organizations have called for this demonstration against the disarmament of Hezbollah. And this demonstration is going to end in front of the Saudi embassy in Beirut, because the Saudi embassy has been very much involved in this pressure on the Lebanese government to disarm Hezbollah. So these are all indicators that there's no way that the Americans or the Israelis are going to get what they want, to create a civil war or force the military to confront Hezbollah and disarm the resistance. And that's another indicator that we will go back to war some other way, which is most probably an Israeli attack.
Interesting. Wow. Well, I'll stay with you and want to keep updated. We hope there's no, violence or what have you, but the Zionists will always push things too far. They will always push it too far. Now, I've been reading about a flotilla, and that this one could have a lot of. And I've been reading for a long time that there was flotillas being put together with a lot of boats. What do we know about the latest flotilla, or upcoming? I mean,
yeah. So this is the latest version of this Gaza flotilla. It's called the Sumud Flotilla, and it's leaving from two locations, I think, or at least two locations that I know of, from Barcelona in Spain and from Tunis city in Tunisia. I think there's another port in Italy that they're leaving from. And there's going to be at least 60 boats involved in this, with hundreds of activists from Europe and North Africa. Now, I personally was outreached to see if I would be involved in this. And my response to that was, if I'm going to be invited on these boats, I would want to have a say in what's going to happen in these boats, given that I could be martyred and or tortured by the Israelis. And I believe, this is maybe the 8th or 10th version of these boats going to Gaza since 2008. And other than the first boat that made it in 2008, every other boat was either intercepted, looted the resources on it by the Zionists, and they kept even the boats, the Zionists, and everybody that was on these boats arrested, beaten, and deported. So I think repeating the same experiment over and over and expecting a different outcome is, as Einstein would say, is the definition of insanity. And so, in my opinion, if you have 60 boats and you're leaving from Barcelona, You can blockade the Gibraltar Strait and stop all shipping of weapons to the Zionist colony. Spain itself is the largest purchaser of Israeli weapons till now, till today. It's not Germany, it's not the US, it's Spain. So if you have boats there in Spain, why don't you blockade the Spanish ports and stop the arrival of Israeli weapons to Spain? If you have 60 boats and you have all these Arabs and Turks on them, which means that they're more liable to be killed, as happened with the Mavi Marmara in 2009, why not direct these boats to the Atrecore UK base in Cyprus, which is directing all the attacks on Gaza and the surveillance of Gaza? You can take it over very easily from the beach and end that. And maybe that will motivate Cypriots to actually liberate their own land from UK occupation from the land side. They will join you. If you have 60 boats, you can go to the port of Iskenderun in Turkey, where and you have all these Turkish citizens on these boats. Why not go to that port of Iskenderun and blockade it and stop the exporting of looted Syrian and Iraqi oil from Turkey to the Zionist colony? There is many ways that we can achieve better goals with this money, human bodies and resources than going and delivering them to Israel for Israel to enjoy these resources, and or delivering all these international activists to be abused by the Israelis and then scarred for life and maybe never do any action to support Palestine again. So I personally call on the organizers of the Flotilla to sit down and think strategically, innovatively, and not just act in ways that are all about media hype and pictures here and pictures there and a few faces, and not to waste all our resources, these millions of dollars. Every one of those boats cost $500,000 to purchase, to insure, and to supply, with oil and diesel and whatever it is to get it to where it's going. This is above and beyond what's on the boats. So this is a call for those who are organizing this to sit back and think sanely of how can we achieve better goals with these boats.
Yeah, I think I agree. That is, and what happens is you get kind of like copycat people. Somebody says, okay, we're going to do a flotilla. And everybody thinks, okay, flotilla, that's the thing to do. And as you said, nobody stops to think, okay, somebody's done that. That's what they did. That's what they believed in. It's fine. That was their way of doing things. Right now, what can we do to be effective? Because what you're saying, I think, and this is important, it is to resist within your own, the power within your own society, to say, okay, the Brits are doing this out of Cyprus. This is in the West, considering, you know what I mean, as far as power, the economic power. We're going to go after the people here that are doing this. We're going to block things. We're going to stop things. I always like it when I see they block roads, or they go to whatever, some of these companies that's working with it, and they block so they can't load stuff on this to actually do things. So I agree with you. It's time to consider other ways and be creative to act. So I think that's good. Iran. You've got the U.S. saying, oh, we're going to buy this block in strip in of Armenia, and we're going to blah, blah, blah. I call it DNB Foo. That's what I call it. Because for people who know the history of DNB Foo, just real quick, the French said, hey, we got an idea. We're going to go way out in the middle of Vietnamese territory to demonstrate how powerful we are. And we're going to build a base right in the midst of their territory, where we'll be surrounded by them. Now, they put it at the bottom of a hill and everything, and they're completely surrounded. Who could have predicted? They got blown to hell. That's what it is to me. It's DNB Foo. We're going to go between Russia and Iran, on Iran's border, where they can use short-range missiles to turn it into mist in 15 minutes. They don't even have to use their long-range missiles. short-range missiles, any base that you build there is essentially bien food. Oh boy, we're right on the Iranians' border. We got them surrounded now. And what happens if a war started? About 50 missiles. About 50 missiles, and you got no base anymore. So while it may seem like and it's landlocked. You can't resupply it from the sea. It's sitting right there. To me, it is so stupid. And I don't think it'll get past the Armenian parliament and all that. But it's so stupid for me to say, I'm going to go right there and take this little area and build bases where Iran and or Russia, if a war started, could just, I wouldn't want to be stationed at that base. Because what they're really saying is, if a war starts, your life expectancy is about, how long does it take for those missiles to get there? 20 minutes, 15 minutes? That's your life expectancy. Anyway, your thoughts on this brilliant plan to build a bien food type base in Armenia?
Yeah, there's many, dreams that the Americans have with this corridor. And as you said, one of them is stationing NATO troops right on the border of Iran on the Armenian territory. The other thing is that they want to build basically a path to have a reverse migration of the Wahhabi death squads from Central Asia that they brought into Western Asia for the wars in Iraq, Yemen, Syria, and what have you. And now, people think that Erdogan is trying to rebuild the Ottoman Empire. And the Ottoman Empire, historically, the vast majority of its territory and its population were Arabic people. Well, no, Erdogan is not allowed to dream of rebuilding the Ottoman Empire. The Arabs right now are supposed to be the slaves of the Zionist colony. So he's not allowed to touch thinking to expand south towards the Arabic peoples that historically were part of the Ottoman Empire. His job right now is to revive the Mongol Turkic hordes. Okay, the Turkey as we know it, and the Turkish people that we know came with the Turkic Mongolic hordes during the Mongol invasion in the 11th century from Central Asia. And what we saw over the last 30 years is this creation of all of these neo-Mongol hordes of the Wahhabi death squads being taken from Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, what have you, Central Asia, and Uyghurs and so forth, brought all the way to here in Western Asia. And now the Americans want to push them back to Central Asia to destabilize the soft belly of Russia and China. Because all those Turkic Mongolic peoples live in the center of Asia, in the border areas between Russia and China. And if you destabilize this area, not only will you isolate Iran geographically completely from Russia and China in terms of land continuity, but you will also, cut all the possibility of trade that China is building with its Belt and Road projects, including the train and highway tracks that go through the Central Asian countries to Russia and or to Iran and to the rest of the world. So this is, I think, their main purpose. It's not only about building these bases, it's even the longer look. And Turkey is the spearhead in this imperialist plot, and Erdogan is rebuilding this pan-Turkic identity, and he's being allowed, unlike what has happened with his clashes with the Israelis over his neo-Ottoman ideas. Now he has a way to become another emperor, but he has to do that with the Turkic people. So how will Iran and Russia respond to these moves? I think Russia made one of its biggest mistakes not asserting its control of Armenia. I know Russia doesn't like to bully like the Americans do, But the vast majority of Armenian people were against the collaborationist class of the president of Armenia and the prime minister that were pushing Armenia towards the West. And Russia should have invested more. Now, it's a little bit almost getting to be too late, if especially that they do not support Iran fully in terms of military capabilities. Russia has withdrawn from Armenia, doesn't have bases there anymore. So the only people that have now direct military line of contact with this new corridor are Iran. Will the Russians invest in helping Iran protect itself in these situations in order to protect Russia from the possibilities of reigniting problems within the Central Asian countries? Those are all questions I don't have answers to. We will see what's going to happen in the next few months.
Yeah, that's a very, very, there's not a lot there I disagree with you on. I think that's a very good evaluation of the situation. So let me ask you this. I've heard it said there are a lot of people that don't think that the Armenian government that signed will be able to push it through, that ultimately, it's less than 50-50, that they'll be able to actually get it through their parliament. What do you think? Well, and then again, you're dealing with the imperialists, so they don't deal from the perspective of, you know what I mean? They'll just bribe, kill people, whatever the heck they got to do.
Yeah, and Russia and Iran should do the same. They should bribe as many of these politicians as possible. I have these funny ideas sometimes, and of course, I don't share them openly much of the time. But if we put a campaign right now, buy a Western politician and put a number, maybe me and you can buy a Western politician if we want to. So definitely, we live in this world where corruption is out in the open. So might as well do it and not lie about it. So the Russians and the Iranians should also try to buy up Armenian politicians. They should support any civil groups within Armenia that are opposed to the sellout of Armenian territory and are nationalist and patriotic. Look, Armenian language and Armenian culture is part of the Indo-Iranian, civilization. And there's a lot of the largest Armenian population outside Armenia is in Iran. So it's there's a lot of interests that are connected, and I think Iran will not allow the United States to take over this Armenian territory without having to pay a high price for it. It's not going to be as easy as the Americans think. And it doesn't matter that Azerbaijan is collaborating with Turkey and the United States about this, because Azerbaijan itself right now is very fragile. There's been multiple attacks inside Azerbaijan over the last few weeks on major resources and infrastructure. Nobody has claimed those attacks. And we even saw, I think it was yesterday or the day before, one of the major refineries in Ukraine that are owned by the Azerbaijani National Oil Production Company, whatever it is called, also being destroyed by Russia, okay, in its attacks. So those are all indications that Russia and Iran are raising the price on Azerbaijan for its collaboration with the Turks and NATO to take over this territory of Armenia, and also for the collaboration with Israel in the attacks on Iran. And if these retaliatory, undeclared moves by Russia and Iran continue on this pace, the Azerbaijani government is going to have to deal with a lot of internal unrest. And believe me, I think Iran is even having its own Azerbaijani population that cross the border back and forth to also probably are trying to change the opinions in the populace. There's now a new Azerbaijani language Iranian television station that's directed to the Azerbaijani population. And I think there's a big propaganda war happening. We'll see how all of these things add up together.
You know, I saw something. I'm starting to see some things leak out, and I think this may be one of the things that's causing the unrest in Tel Aviv, and that is some of the numbers that are being released of the number of soldiers that have been killed. You know, they'd say, "Oh yes," you know, we'd see a whole block of Israeli, you know, soldiers blown up. You know, the Israeli soldiers get blown up, and they'd say, "Oh yeah, one soldier was injured when he slipped on a banana peel or something." And we just saw, you know, we see tanks blowing up, guys throwing satchel charges under, machine gunning them down. Oh no, there were no losses. So now I saw something the other day that said they lost like 6,100 soldiers, the Israel, and that they had, I forgot, like 100 or 200, 100,000 wounded, 200,000 wounded. But I saw that it didn't match the numbers of soldiers that the hospital said they had treated was like many times more. So the question was asked in this article, well, how can you say, as an example, how can you say you had 50,000 wounded when the hospitals are saying they treated 250,000? You know, the numbers aren't matching up. But it's, I think, one of the things that's starting to get apparent to the Zionists is that they're paying a much heavier price than is being announced, and that the resistance forces have been very, very successful.
Yeah, definitely. I think the number of Israeli soldiers killed is way beyond 15,000. The last time, as you remember, a few months ago, or maybe even 6 months ago, the head of the military said there's 15,000 bereaved families in Israel. So that's around 6 months ago. So clearly it's much higher, the number, and that's even that 15,000 was probably an underestimate on purpose. You did correctly mention there's at least a couple of 100,000 Israeli soldiers with disabilities. Okay, so, and add to it that there's 20,000, as we know now, 22,000 Americans that are serving in the Israeli military in this war specifically. And add to it also that the American government has now given, by decree of the US government, any Israeli soldier gets to be treated in the veterans, you know, of the United States, given all the medical and insurance and coverage. Israeli soldiers right now are getting treatment from American veterans associations, and while the American soldiers themselves are not getting it, obviously. So a lot of these numbers are being hidden this way. Who knows how many are also being treated in the UK and in Germany and in France and in Italy, all to hide the numbers. How many of them are being absorbed as numbers within those militaries of those governments as if they are wounded from them, right? So it's clear that the Israeli military is reaching its limit. If there is no never-ending supply of mercenaries, this is another thing. We don't even talk about the mercenaries. We know that United Arab Emirates had 2,000 mercenaries fighting inside Gaza and on the border with Lebanon, by the way. This is the UAE. So imagine how many of them died and are not counted. Imagine how many mercenaries that other Western governments sent, or the special forces that are, again, their numbers as special forces are hidden from the public completely. So I think the price of this war in terms of Western manpower, military manpower, imperial military manpower, is probably over 30,000 dead. And this is remarkable and a clear indicator of how valiant and strong the Palestinian and or the Lebanese fighters were. because although the Americans lied about their numbers in Vietnam, according to the official estimates, 55,000 American soldiers were killed in Vietnam War over that almost 10 years period, right? So to reach this number of 30,000, soldiers killed from the imperial hordes only in 22 months, that shows you how fierce the fight is. And I just saw a video from yesterday that Hamas released from inside Al Zaytun neighborhood on the outskirts of Gaza City that is now being decimated by the Israelis. And I couldn't believe what I just saw. Here's a Palestinian fighter carrying an RPG kind of Yasin shell. And he's rushing towards an Israeli APC with the machine gun on top of it. And there's two Israeli soldiers in the building looking from their window, and they can't see him. You can see the two Israeli soldiers looking down. It's like as if the angels, blinded them to not seeing this Palestinian rushing in this open field to the APC and then boom, blowing it up. And then 5 other Palestinians showing up and taking down the building, and all the rescue teams that came to take out the Israeli soldiers injured. This is unbelievable, these images. The Palestinian fighters are some of the fiercest on the planet. They've proven themselves to be so. And Israeli soldiers have now, all the soldiers that had any experience have been injured and or killed over the last 22 months. Now we're, at those really weak, not trained that well soldiers, and it's getting worse and worse for them.
Yeah, and they're fighting it out now because the ultra orthodox or whoever they are, they don't want to go fight. They want to stay home at their free homes that's paid for by the United States, where they don't work, they don't do anything, they just live in these settlements and everything's paid for them, and they want to stay here. And now they're being told they have to go fight, so they're fighting it out because they feel that they should be privileged and they shouldn't have to fight. So it's just this project is falling apart, and I don't think there's a way for a recovery. I don't think there's a plan anywhere in the next 5 years for Israel to stop fighting. It is nothing but a war machine now. It's part of the war machine, and they're using it for what it was meant for, and that's all. And they're like, oh, well, we don't know what to do over here. These politicians kill me. They're like, yes, Netanyahu's a bad guy. Who keeps him in power? That's the reason he's in power. He's in power because he's a good excuse, because you can do all these terrible things. And when people say, you're doing terrible things, not us, it's Netanyahu. He's just perfect. The guy, any given day, he's got every criminal charge you could imagine over his head. And they're like, he's keeping these wars going. Really? He's keeping the wars going? He's so powerful? It's absurd now to watch this show where they pretend that Netanyahu's in charge. They pretend that Zelensky's in charge. These people, they're not even puppets. They're, you know what I say? It's more like a piñata for you to hit. They're effigies for you to hit the piñata, for you to get mad at. Here, let me hold up Netanyahu over here and Zelensky. You guys punch at them. You guys get mad. Focus on them, and then the empire will be over doing what we're doing. We're doing all of our things, but just keep your focus on these piñatas. Here's a stick. Hit the piñata. Maybe some candy will fall out. It's a joke to me that people fall for this crap.
Yeah, or the pin the tail on the donkey situation.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, no, I mean, I watched that press conference in the White House, and the way all of those European quote-unquote leaders were brought into the Oval Office to sit in front of the principal.
Oh my God.
I mean, God damn, it's so humiliating. And here people, when they see the prime minister humiliating the nation like, this, at least you have people in the streets, as we're, they're going to start this demo in a few minutes. I have to go and film from it. But, or there's people that are carrying arms, I can't imagine myself being a British citizen with a supposed history of British Empire, you know, and the glory of that, and or a Dutch and or a German and a French and Italian, seeing your leaders humiliated day in, day out, and being told that you're nothing. And they have
Oh,
like,
Trump, you're doing such a great job. Oh, Master, we thank you. Would you please grant us a ceasefire or some changed rhetoric? And Trump's like, nah, just, I'll do what I want. Shut up. Oh, but you're doing so. Thank you. Oh, here, next, it's the next puppet's turn. Oh, Master, you're so, and I'm like, oh, it's unwatchable to watch these people humiliate themselves, their lands, their culture, their everything. They're a disgrace to their family. They're a disgrace to their ancestors.
Yeah, and you know, add to it obviously that they're all you know, CIA picked, and you know, most probably there's Epstein files on all of them. So and we remember that video of Macron with the German and British prime ministers and chancellor with the bag of Coke there on the table.
Yeah, the old
This is the kind of elite that Europe has, and you know, if I was a European citizen, I'll be up in rebellion right now. But thankfully,
well, they don't need Epstein files on Macron. His whole life is one big Epstein file.
Yes.
I mean, leave that one alone. I'm just saying his life is a big Epstein file. Maybe Epstein files on his part. I'll use this word. Maybe on his partner. I'll just use the word partner. Epstein files on his partner, possibly, but his whole marriage is a giant Epstein file. At any rate, before we go, let's just remind everybody what you can do. I know what you're saying. What can I do? I'm just here's what you can do. FreePalestine.video. That's FreePalestine.video. And look right there. See where it says donate to Free Palestine TV. Even if you've only got a little, you can only, I don't have that much. I can only do a little. Guess what? You can make it monthly, and that will make a big difference. So what you can do, besides just kind of sit in the chat and say, oh boy, this is great stuff, I really appreciate it, what you can do is go to freepalestine.video. The good thing, it's not like you're getting anything. They got episodes, field reports, military, all the stuff you want to see is right there, and you can be a part of this. Make sure that you share freepalestine.video on all your social media platforms, so that everybody else gets a chance to do it. And make sure you put a little note that you remind people, hey, don't forget, you got to do what I did and donate. Thanks a lot, everybody. Laith Marouf, certainly appreciate it. It's freepalestine.video. That's where you need to go. Make sure you follow him on X and get all the latest videos and Telegram and all that stuff. Keep up the good work, buddy. And I'll talk soon, and you can update us on what you're doing.
See you next week.
All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Share this on all your social media platforms. We are out.